Well, today we're real excited to have Tim and Hudson Haws with us, and just a chance to kind of have a conversation and let you listen in on it. And I think you will be inspired. Tim was a public school educator, principal, administrator for many, many years, and is retired now. He also graduated from our SNU as Masters of Ed Leadership, and so is one of you, some of you who are in the master's programs. And Hudson graduated from here in 2020 and got a degree in history. And man, it's just a pleasure for them to be able to share. And I want to just let them share a little bit about themselves first, and then we'll ask some questions and kind of look into some of the exciting things that are happening in their lives. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But first, tell us, Tim, a little bit about you and your interests. Oh, I crossed my legs. That makes it look more casual. About you and your interests. I'll uncross them. And just things that you're interested in. And Hudson, tell us a little bit about yourself as well. So let's start with that.
So we live here in Bethany. I was raised up east of Edmond out in the country, and after my wife and I got married, we settled here just a couple of blocks off campus. And like Blair said, I've been a teacher, coach, and administrator for a long time, and met my wife Lisa at a Nazarene church camp back when we were 14, and Hudson's the youngest of three of our boys. So.
Did you get married when you were 14, or was
no. She dumped me many times between 14 and marriage. Finally she has a vision problem, so that really helped me out over the years. So.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Hudson, what about you?
Well, went to Bethany High School, came across the street to here. By some grace of God, I graduated. I still do a little bit of work for you guys, but kind of moving out, branching out with some other things.
Yeah, and so when he says he does work, Hudson does a lot of work on our website, the SNU website. That's right?
Yeah.
And you were always interested in I think outdoor sports and all kinds of different.
Yeah, lots of hunting, lots of fishing, lots of sports ever since I was a kid. Lots of outdoor activities for sure.
So I know a lot of people in the Bethany area know the story, your story, but I think there's a lot of students here that aren't from Bethany that are here, and this is the first time they've ever heard of the name Hudson Haws, and they don't know your story. So tell us the story of just your injury and how it happened and the way that it kind of affected your life, and just kind of share that part of your story.
Yeah, so on October 23rd, 2015, I was playing a high school football game. I was a linebacker. I'll let you have an imagination of how good I was. But I made a tackle, and it wasn't a bad tackle by any means. I felt like my form was pretty good, but ended up busting a couple vertebrae in my neck and fracturing one in my back. The vertebrae in my neck, my C4 through C6, came loose and bruised by my spinal cord, which left me paralyzed from the chest down. The initial injury, I on the field, it was more like neck down, but I regained some stuff. I ended up going to OU Medical Center, ICU for 2 weeks, dealt with some pneumonia stuff there. And then a bed at a world-renowned hospital opened up in Denver, Colorado. It's Craig Hospital, and I was able to get metaflighted out there and do 3 months of inpatient therapy there, which was a whole new workout on its own. It was very intense. It was 8-9 hours a day of straight physical therapy. Weekends you got off kind of, but the therapists were still around and they'd have you do things. But so did all that, ended up coming back here and graduated from my high school, and then started at SNU in 2016 and did 4 years here, got a history degree. Not using it yet, but I will be, hopefully. Yeah.
Wow, just crazy, just the way that, I mean, everything changed, and I know that was a difficult thing to deal with. I remember we had a SNU group of leaders that were out in Colorado. I think we were going skiing, and we dropped in to see you in Craig Hospital and went and had a chance to connect with you there, and that was, I know that was a real impactful time, like just in your life, like a formative time with all of those, just the doctors and the therapists and all. What about from a dad's perspective? You were at the game, you saw it, you know, you walked with Hudson and your family through all of this. Give me your perspective on it.
Well, it's, you know, I remember walking out on the field that day, and I was hoping one of two things had happened. I haven't been a coach for a long time. I had seen my share of serious injuries, and I was hoping either Hudson's both his legs were broken, or that he was unconscious, because other than that, he was going to get up. And as I walked out there and I heard him talking, I knew right then that we were facing a very serious injury. And you know, growing up in the church and having walked with Jesus for a long time, while you know, this wasn't the first challenging thing that ever happened to our family. We've dealt with our share of challenging diagnoses and the loss of loved ones. And yet, still in the back of your mind, especially as a parent when you're dealing with your kids, you kind of get that false narrative that nothing bad's going to happen. You know, that, you know, as long as I'm doing what, I start doing the moral math. As long as I'm doing good things, then somehow in our minds we start thinking that God's obligated to protect us from bad things. And I know better than that, but still you kind of fall into that trap sometimes. And so needless to say, you know, Hudson's injury flipped our life upside down, literally for a bit, because we, you know, transplanted to Denver for months, and but it's been filled with some challenges.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions that I had for you both, and you can both answer this, is just in the midst of all of this pain and injury and sense of brokenness at some level, and all of that, where was God intervening, and did you see God in the midst of such an unexplainable circumstance? Did you see him involved, God working in this whole thing that happened to you, and where?
You want to go first? All right. For me, it was, of course, right off the bat, like Hudson said, he had fallen face down, and probably in that process had inhaled some dirt or grass. And normally your body would you'd cough that out and you wouldn't even notice. But in his situation, he didn't. And so he developed really bad pneumonia. And I remember the respiratory therapist coming in, and they had to swing him around, and he was on a special bed that just shook the dog out of him, and that was really, really hard. And then, but all of a sudden, well, I remember the first time I got to go home from the hospital. I'd been camped out there for days, so it was time for me to go get cleaned up. And I remember going home and just standing in the shower with the water rolling over me and just broken. And the one thing I just kept saying to God was, I just don't want to be disappointed. Because I've read all the verses. I mean, I know what God's told us. And here I was in the midst of a life-changing deal, and I just wanted it all to be true. And so immediately I just sensed God just really what I think he said is, watch this, and started just plowing the way for us. And so those of you sitting in the room, going to SNU, you've got a name attached to you. It's called Nazarene. And what was amazing is when we show up at Craig Hospital in Denver, I remember walking into Hudson's room, had his name on the outside of the door, and there were people all in there, and I was like, oh, we're in the wrong place. And come to find out, it was a bunch of people from Denver First Church of the Nazarene that had heard that Hudson was coming. And that Nazarene connection and network was working, and God was moving people that we didn't even know. We had people there and they fed us and took care of all of our needs. And it was just God moving people and stirring them. And I could tell you countless stories on that.
That's great. Hudson, what about from your perspective?
So one of the big things for me was whenever I was in the ICU, I was in the same bed for a while and was dealing with all the pneumonia and countless other things that come with this kind of injury. And I remember my brother being sent to go look at some rehab facilities. And he came back and he was like, we don't want to go there. And we were like, okay, well, I mean, we don't really have another option. And then, I mean, probably less than 24 hours later, a representative from Craig showed up and said, we just had a bed open up. And they said, it's got your name on it if you want it. So we were extremely blessed to be able to go out there to a facility that has people that come from all over the world. I mean, while I was there was people from India, Israel, there was, Mexico. It was people from all over the world come there for spinal cord injuries because that's the place to be. And that's the place that will give you the best recovery that you possibly can get. And so that was a huge standout blessing in the midst of all that. And then another blessing in disguise was I was planning on going to OU for my college, not for football, but I was just planning on going to OU. And so I ended up getting injured, and obviously that becomes kind of a not so much of a feasible thing. Transportation is difficult and all this stuff, but luckily I've grown up all my life just several blocks away from this institution at SNU, and I had some friends coming here, and it was just welcoming arms. I mean, not a lot of people I feel like can say that they got a traumatic injury and then were able to come to an institution, pretty much experienced no hiccups in anything. I was able to seamlessly come in here. The staff was so accommodating. My professors were all absolutely amazing. The student body was amazing. I never felt like I never had to worry about being able to do certain things because, I don't know, God paved the way for me to come here, and that was a blessing also.
Let me say something about that too. So Hudson graduated in 4 years, And when he first said, I'm going, I was trying to arrange my schedule such, because I figured I'm going to have to take him. I didn't take Hudson up here to class one time in 4 years. His buddy swung by and got him every single day. And I think in the course of the 4 years, he missed 2 weeks because we had 2 different times we were in the hospital. But other than that, every single day, faithful friends showing up. I think that spoke volume. It spoke volumes to me.
Yeah, I was going to say, Hudson didn't ever have to come to chapel. We just we would have let him not come to chapel, but he was here. I don't think you ever paid a chapel fine. He was always here. His buddies would always bring him, and I think that as I looked at it, I saw God moving in a lot of ways, but I did see it through those friends of yours who would just sacrifice their comfort and their own things so that they could be with you, and I didn't feel like they felt obligated. They just loved you, and they loved. I think you taught me a lot about friendship, and they did as well. Just they told me one time your car broke down, you couldn't get the wheelchair in it, and so they had to come from the house through the cold. It was a cold day and
Half a mile.
And a half a mile. So.
It was finals week. I would not have came if this.
It was finals week. So we know that you have a lot going on right now, and I want you to tell us a little bit about this thing called the 34 Project. Like, what is the 34 Project, and where did it launch? And just tell us a little bit about what this is.
So after coming back from Craig, there's after you finish your inpatient stuff, there's outpatient options for you. So I started going to Jim Thorpe here in Oklahoma City, and it was great, and loved the people there. They were all awesome, but the problem is with that is insurance severely limits your visits and options for therapy, and there's a lot of things that you would like to be able to do and your therapist would love for you to be able to do, but an insurance company will tell you they're not going to do it. So that was a big, difficult thing to kind of work through, and very frustrating to work through. So after I kind of ran out of my visits for my outpatient stuff, there was kind of a lull, and what am I going to do? I was kind of doing some workout stuff at home, and but nothing, no supervised therapy. And then we end up hearing about a place down in Dallas called React, and they were a full neurological injury therapy center, but they were private, so they didn't have insurance companies telling them what they could and couldn't do. And went down there for several months, and it was extremely impactful. Made a lot of great strides in my recovery. That first day I was down there, they had me standing up at a squat rack. Very supported, I'll add, but that was the first time I had been doing that in a really long time. And they'll manhandle you down there and throw you around and get you a good workout. But so we did that, and then that made him mad, because
I got frustrated having to drive in Dallas traffic. First of all, those of you from Dallas know what I'm talking about, and so it was a long day. 3.5 hours down. You work out a couple hours, hit In-N-Out Burger, and then head on back. And what was really frustrating is, one, I knew that we had a lot of people here that could really benefit from a place like React. And what's heartbreaking is when you kind of enter this world of spinal cord injury, you get to know a lot of people in the area. And so I knew of a lot of young people especially that they were just sitting at home. They really didn't have a place to go. And so we decided to start our own activity-based therapy center here in Oklahoma, and we named it the 34 Project, and that was Hudson's football number, 34. And so once again, God started plowing the way, and doors are opening, and we have a facility right down across from the Bethany Fire Station off of Rockwell, and we've got people coming, and we're getting after it.
That's awesome. It's amazing. When are you going to bring In and Out to Oklahoma City?
As soon as possible.
Yes. We need it.
Yes, we do. We've needed it for a long time.
Well, the last really question I want to talk to you about is we've been kind of focused this whole year, first on hope and then on joy, and how that isn't dependent on the world's circumstances. It's dependent on who God is as our source of hope that overflows into the world, and God as our source of joy. And so as we kind of close this time together, I just want to know, like, in what ways has God impacted you with this idea of hope and this idea of joy, and in what spiritual aspect is really important to you at this time moving forward in your lives?
So I believe that you're either in a challenge right now or one's coming. None of us are exempt. And at some point in your life, you're going to probably pray the same prayer I prayed. God, are you really going to help me out here? Is this real? And one of the verses that's always stuck out to me is in Psalm 34, where it says, "The Lord hears his people when they call to him for help. He rescues them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he rescues those whose spirits are crushed." And I can testify to you guys today that God showed up. Might not have been on my timetable, might not have been by the amazing plans that I've prayed to him and said, "Hey, I got a really great plan. We ought to do this." And I remember praying that one time, and while I didn't hear the audible voice of God, I felt like I heard his whisper saying, "Did you not see that sunset I painted today? I think I know what amazing's all about. You just hang on." And so really, for me, and Hudson's the epitome of this, we all have a choice. We all have one April 6th, 2020, or April 5th, 2020. We get or 2022, I don't even know what year it is. And we have a decision to make. Are we going to get hijacked by the challenges that we face every day, or are we going to go live this day that the Lord's given us and go find the joy and the adventure he has for this day? Not one time has this guy ever said, "I don't want to get up. I don't want to go do today." In fact, he's the opposite of that. He's ready to get up. He's ready to go. And it's just been a blessing for me to watch his courage and his living of the adventure. And that's my take on that.
One thing that I really like, it's a quote. It's, sorry, I don't have a Bible verse for you, but it's from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, and he's talking about dealing with adversity and dealing with bad things that will happen to you, and he says, you should rejoice in the fact that you're having to deal with this, because the fact that you're the one dealing with it means somebody else doesn't have to. So I look at that and I think, I'm glad, not, that in a perspective, I know that it's going to be okay because I know that I'm one capable to handle something like this. It's not going to completely crush me, and it's, I don't know, I just really like that quote, and I think it applies to really everything. Whenever you're going through something that's very difficult, you can kind of look at it and be like, well, I know that I'm strong enough to handle this, so I shouldn't really get down about it. I should just get after it. And yeah.
Good. Well, I want to thank you guys for sharing. I was talking with you backstage, and I've known Hudson for a while, and I've known his story. And as far as I know, I've never heard you share the story yourself. And I think this is the first time you've ever publicly shared this story. And I think maybe as a student body, we should show our appreciation for that kind of courage. And could we do that right now? I think it's awesome. Let's just stay standing up. Don't sit back down. Stay standing up. I want to pray for us. Stay standing. God, thank you for this story. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for Tim and Hudson. God, we thank you for friends that were willing to sacrifice some of their lives. We thank you for an attitude that says, no matter what happens in my life, God, you can lead me. God, you can use me. And God, thank you for staying true to your promises in the Haws' lives and their families' life. And God, I thank you for staying true to your promises in some of our students' lives who have similar stories of heartbreak and tragedy, stories of brokenness and courage. And God, may we all give you glory for the things that you have done in our lives. And we recognize this world is broken, and a lot of times things aren't the way they're supposed to be, but we do know that you are a king that has come and a king that is coming. And God, we are grateful for that. And so thank you that you take situations that aren't good and you bring good out of them. And we trust that you will continue to do that. Thank you for this opportunity. We love you. And everybody said, amen. You are dismissed. God bless you.